Hello everyone. Good evening and welcome to the Nottingham Forest Supporters Trust AGM 2024. Thank you very much indeed for attending. We have this evening a record attendance to our AGM, and I wonder why that might be. Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. More seriously though, this is an important meeting for us. It's our annual AGM, and as a community benefit society with members, paid up members, yourselves, we have a requirement to report at an AGM, and we'll come on to some of that later. We will be covering our agenda tonight in a maximum of 2 hours. So most importantly, we're going to be getting on to a very special guest, Tom Cartledge, the chairman of our football club, and I'll introduce Tom in a moment, but many thanks to him. It's the first time Chairman has attended our AGM, and it's an honour for us, and we're most grateful for it. We'll come back to that in a minute. The other attendees we have are apart from the board members you'll be introduced to each one of those as they go through their reports. But we have Will Doog, who is the fan engagement and marketing manager at Forest. And we also have two people from the Football Supporters Association. We have Thomas Concannon, who's the Premier League Network Manager. Isn't it nice hearing that? Premier League Network Manager. And we also have Nick Cave. She's the Governance and Training Manager at the FSA. And you can see on the agenda there, I'm not going to talk in any detail about each one of those. We'll come on to each one. But Tom will be, and Tom and Will both be leaving us after 20 minutes or so allowing us to get on with the rest of our agenda. Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk about. I won't be long, 5 minutes or so in this section. I'm going to talk through very briefly the achievements that we believe we ticked off, the bigger ones in 2023. Relationship with the club I'll touch upon, but you probably have seen some of that. What we're doing in communications. I'm going to talk about the board in the future, the new board, the board capacity and succession planning, and what I see as being the challenges and for 2024, and therefore the associated aims and objectives. So if we can go to the achievement slide, please, next one. Thank you. So you've seen we've established, I think, a decent working relationship with the new chairman. It was a challenge because we knew Nick Randall and known him for 6 years. Lord knows how many meetings over the years with him. You have a new face in place and you have to establish a new relationship. I think we've done a good job there. We met with him very early on. He was quite open to that. We've conducted the Q&A that a lot of you will have seen. In fact, we've had 2 Q&As this year, as I've got there my third point. I'm going to touch upon the ticketing and membership because I haven't got a separate slide on that. We did consult with the club earlier this year. The outcome wasn't perfect. We opposed on your behalf the price increases, and we did so because we felt that in a time of financial challenge for a lot of people, cost of living crisis, words we've heard a great deal, means that people can't afford to pay a lot more money for their tickets or their memberships to the club. So we thought it wasn't a good thing for the club to do it. We opposed it. They did listen to some degree, and there were probably 1 or 2 small changes around the edges. Overall, though, we weren't successful in stopping them increase the price, but as they made the point, which some of you will think is fair, Forest are nowhere near the top. They're not even at the middle of pricing in this area. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll challenge again next year if they plan to put the prices up by more than inflation. And so we have a voice. We do consult. Going down my list there, we coordinated some food bank collections. That's important to me. I particularly strongly believe that we can help there. And my colleagues are going to talk about the member engagement, the female fans, governance standards. They're going to be covered by other people. I'll talk about the social media on a slide in a minute, and media stuff. And just that penultimate point there, let me just talk about that briefly. A lot of you might not be aware of the fact that we do a huge amount of individual representations on behalf of specific members who write into us, and we intervene with the club on that basis, something that doesn't get seen a great deal, but we're proud of what we do there. Next slide, please. Okay, so next slide. We've got several in-person meetings that we've done during the year. Lots of them, calls, WhatsApps, formal, informal, all sorts going on, very regular contact, and we report out the bigger stuff to you. I've mentioned the meeting with the chairman. You've just seen the chairman on the AGM, and we've done the 2 Q&As. So we think the relationship is pretty good. You're not saying we're happy. You can always do more, but at the moment we're happy with it. Next one, please. Communication slide. You all get regular e-bulletins, and we know because we look at these things that we get very high opening rates on those bulletins. So something going on quite well there. So we're engaging with you as best we can there. We keep the website up to date on a regular basis. You'll have seen in the report I sent out, if you've read it, what we do on social media, commenting on that. We get good engagement. We ignore people on Twitter who are rude or abusive. We get a hell of a lot of it. Frankly, I don't care. It doesn't bother me personally, but I don't actually read it. We block and we don't respond. If people want to criticize, we're really, really receptive to it. Do so in an open fashion, ideally with your name and courteous, and you'll get a full response. So we're quite happy with what we're doing there. We don't really look at my age. I don't understand TikTok. We could probably be reaching a new audience if we could do some of that. And there's one of the new board members, I think, will be able to help with that. He's younger and some more experience in that sort of area. And then the final thing we do on comms is we get invited on media from time to time. This has mainly been Radio Nottingham in the last year. Next slide, please. I think I've just got two more. So board capacity. The thing I've been really thrilled by, has been the quantity and the quality of the people who stood for the Supporters Trust board. We've always been a bit under capacity, and all the time I've been involved with it, we've had issues with capacity, and it restricts you. It means there's stuff that you can't do because you haven't got enough of you doing it. And now we do. And if you haven't already, do have a look at the email, the e-bulletin we sent out to you with the extraordinary quality of the 5 people who've stood for the board, and one other person, Jonathan Simpson, who is being co-opted to the board. Those 6 people will bring to us an enormous amount that we don't currently have. The great thing is each one of them brings their own special interest, and it will help lead us in new directions. Our football club's still relatively small, and it's the case. And despite what Tom's just said, what's going on off the pitch, they still lack capacity in some areas. And people like ourselves with the sort of skill set that we'll be able to bring means that we'll have a very influential voice because of the quality of these people. So really watch this space. I'm extremely excited about what new people can bring. And I know you're all on the call tonight, so thank you to each one of you for standing. Can we have my final slide, please, before the Secretary's report? Okay, so these are the challenges and the aims and objectives for us in the year. I've just put 3 down here. The first one of which is trying to define a role for ourselves alongside the FAB. If you say there's an FAB, what's the trust for? Well, I'd say the critical thing here is that the people listening to this, all you lot, our members and the many, many hundreds of other people who aren't on the call tonight, we're here to represent you. And that means that if you engage with us and tell us what you want us to say, is that through the FAB and through ourselves directly, we can get your voice heard by the football club. Now that we are in a unique position, the nature of us is that each time we go to the FAB, we will be consulting with you beforehand. So if you've got things that you want to raise, it's your views. It's not what we think. It's not what the board thinks. It's what our members think. And I give you my personal commitment that even if it's something I don't agree with, if the majority of our membership thinks something different to me, that's what we go with. That's democracy. So please engage with us and tell us what you think. That will help give us this position. You heard what Tom was saying there about the women's group, and Vicky will be talking about that in a minute. But we think that we'll be able to get a bigger representation for the female voice as well, and other things. We're looking to try to widen diversity in general. And then the middle point there about improving value for money. If we're doing a good job for you, if we're engaging with the club, then we hope that for your £12 a year, that you feel that we're doing something that's worthwhile, and we're giving you guys a voice at the football club that we all support. Final point for me then is to say thank you for your membership of the Sports Trust. We will come to questions at the end, and we'll field those as best we can towards the end. But I want to give you my personal thanks. The fact that you support us and you engage with us gives us credibility and a strong voice with the club. If you weren't doing that, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Paul, who's the acting secretary, and he has a report for you. Thanks once again.
I think we've changed the order slightly there, Andy. So it's Vicky next.
I beg your pardon, Paul. Sorry, I have that. I'm looking at another slide set. Vicky, I do apologise. Across to you.
Okay, I'll let you off this time, Andy. Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to go through membership engagement since I've been involved with the Trust, which has been around 8 or 9 months now. So if I could have the next slide, please. Okay, so what I've done as membership secretary is produce some statistics that we can use and make sure that we have a strategy that's applicable. So at the moment, we have 84% of our members that are male and around 10% members that are female. And 5% are unknown. I know that sounds a bit strange, but what that means is that they've not said. So it's not that we don't know. And everybody has the right to say or not say in that respect. We have around 40% of our members of different ethnic groups. And quite interestingly, 45% of our members are outside Nottingham and 4% are outside England. So there's quite a good representation in that area. We have a good continued membership, and like Andy said, it's really good that we have 78% of our members have continued since 2017. And now we're starting to look at youth and child memberships, which has just started. So it's really kind of 1% of our existing and new that have come in. And then just the last data analysis is how often members engage with us. So that's down to any social media posts, any emails, anything that's sent out. So it's around 16% of you often engage, 38 sometimes, and 40% rarely. So based on those statistics, that it helps us with our strategy where we need to improve and where we need to go forward. So we've already started with some of those areas. If we could have the next slide, and I'll talk more about that. Yeah, so the first one is basically what I've just said, is that there was no statistics done historically to look at trends, uptake, inclusivity and diversity. So we're now making that part of the board meetings, and it's a regular update that I will provide, and we'll look at the objectives of the Trust and develop a strategy that fits the data. One of them was to increase social media posts that are shorter. This was feedback from yourselves as the members that you'd like to see more. And we've started to do that, and hopefully you've seen some more of that, but we've still got some work to do more on that, and we will. Update the website with some case studies, pictures, progress of activities, ensure all board members are included. And again, we've made quite a lot of development in that areas, but we're going to make sure we continue doing that. One of those was a case study for a member that did a marathon for charity recently. So those are the areas we want to kind of include. You are our members, and we want to make sure that that's showcased. We do want to increase the diverse groups, as you'll see from the data. So like the female juniors and seniors, which we need to break the data down more, and also ethnic groups. Where we've made great strides is with the female, and in terms of that we've now started meeting up with female fans before matches, and that's been well attended. We've had some really good feedback that we're now looking at to develop and improve in terms of that, but we could still do more with that and get some more members from females and other areas. So that strategy is still to be developed. We want to do more surveys. We want to find out more about what you think. Different plan dates throughout the year to go to specific groups, but also to all members. And we want to open up the opportunity for us to meet up with various people and groups with the Trust and with Nottingham Forest Football Club as well. And that started to happen with Tom, and also with the question and answer and the FAB, and which I said we'll go through in a bit more. But we also want to extend that even more. Yeah, so we've been holding monthly meetings at the fan zone for female members, and we want to extend that into other members going forward as well. Marketing materials as well, we want to do a bit more development on that. There's been a recent one on the screen that are down at the city ground. Not sure if anybody's seen that, but that's been a new addition. So we're working with the club on that as well. And we still want to look at and review implement any different membership costs and discounts for continuing members. So that's an ongoing strategy and development that we want to put into place and get feedback from yourselves. Okay, I think that's me done. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Vicky. Thank you. So I've now actually got the correct slide set in front of me rather than the one that I was working on some days ago. And so I can now say we're across to my colleague Asif Naidu. Asif is our representative on the Fan Advisory Board. So not only is he working on a Wednesday evening on behalf of fans at Forest, he's going to be working tomorrow as well at the FAB. Asif, over to you.
Thank you, Andy, and good evening, everybody. As Andy said, I'm Asif. I've been on the Trust Board for, well, just over a year now. And as Andy's mentioned, I'm going to be the representative for you all on the Fan Advisory Board. I've just got a couple of slides. I don't intend to talk for too long. That's partly because the first Fan Advisory Board hasn't been held yet, which is being held tomorrow night. But just a bit of background to the Fan Advisory Board. It was established as an initiative at the Premier League's fan engagement standard. Some of you may or may not have read that, but ultimately what the Premier League wanted was to ensure that fans had a voice and an input into the decisions that their club were making, to ensure that the decisions were made in the best interest of the fans, which I think you'll all agree is a really important initiative and the one that Forest have taken very, very seriously. There's a code of conduct, there's terms of references, so the discussion points and decisions or outcomes or actions of that board will be well constituted. The Supporters Trust and myself on behalf of the Supporters Trust will be one of 8 people on there, so 6 representative bodies, ourselves, the Supporters Club, Forza, Punjabi Forest, the Disabled Supporters Association, and then Nottingham Forest North America. There are 2 independent supporters that have been appointed to the board. I'm not aware of who those are, but I'm sure I'll meet them tomorrow. And then alongside that from the club will be Will Doogie, who was on the call earlier today, and Tom Cartledge, who spoke to us all earlier. So you can see there's quite a wide and range of representation there, which can only help in putting across not just our members' views, but a diverse range of our fans' views across the team or across the club, which can only help. I've got another slide. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Like I said, I think the first meeting is tomorrow. And the agenda is focused on 3 areas: ticket accessibility and memberships. So we've had a little bit of input from the members. So the view that I will be putting across will be on behalf of the membership, not my own personal view or the board's view. So we've got a pretty good feel for how you as members feel about that. Likewise with the stadium redevelopments, and the club want to sort of expand on the matchday fan experience. So those are the 3 key agenda items that will be led tomorrow. I think it's important to say that the Supporters Trust is a constituted society. As such, we will be one of the few representatives on that Fan Advisory Board that will be taking a member-led approach. Like I said, I won't be going there with my personal view or the board's view. It'll be the view of all you on the call today, and other members that haven't signed in today. We'll gather feedback from you ahead of meetings, and try and share feedback from those meetings as well, in the best way that we can. I think Tom had mentioned early today that it's a really important platform for the club to communicate with fans and to get their feedback. And I think we shouldn't take lightly the opportunity that we've got as a trust to be able to sit on that board, and give the view of our members, especially as we're the only constituted board or membership that's going to be attending the Fan Advisory Board. So, not necessarily ahead of tomorrow, but please feel free to email the trust with thoughts and questions and suggestions that you want us to take forward to the Fan Advisory Board, and I'll do my best to represent you all as best as possible tomorrow and in future Fan Advisory Boards. Like I said, there's not a great deal to go through because the first one hasn't been held. So that's it from me, and I'll hand over to whoever's on next.
I'll introduce him. The next person up is Paul Seven. Paul is the acting secretary and probably the person at the trust who does more than anybody else, I'll say. So, Paul, thank you to you. I'm passing over to you now. Paul's going to talk us through a few things. We have some motions here, and he's going to talk through some really important improvements we've made in the area of governance. Paul's done a sterling job on this, with the help of Nick Cave, who's on the call in a advisory sort of governance observational capacity. So, Nick, I know you're not going to be talking this evening, but thank you very much to you for all the help and support you've given us in creating this. So, Paul, across to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So the first area of my report is around membership. So numbers stand at around 660. And this is a drop of about 70 from last year. And the reason for this is almost wholly due to an issue that we've faced for some years. It's known in the digital industry as involuntary churn, which means that card details have basically expired. People haven't updated them on whatever payment system you're using, and that means that the renewal fails. So it's something that all membership organisations using our model faces, but it's something that's particularly the case for us. We're not a sort of an essential utility or Sky or something where you notice that the service has been cut. So sometimes people don't update their cards, and that has led to this drop in members. When it comes to people actually actively cancelling and joining, we actually find that far more people join than actively unsubscribe and cancel. So the drop doesn't mean that people are unhappy. We actually find that more people are joining than actively leaving, and we've seen particular spikes around the Q&A and the announcement of this meeting with Tom. That they can create spikes of new members joining us, which is great. We also have started a new youth membership in recent weeks. It's not been widely communicated yet outside the membership, but will be. And this is a free of charge membership for under 16s. It means they can receive our emails and attend events like this. And it replaces the previous child paid for membership, which was £6. And this basically aligns more with other trusts. And obviously being free, we're hoping it will attract far more numbers of younger members. The only difference is that they need to have their own email address. And it just means that we can engage with younger cohorts, which we don't do so particularly well at the moment. So that's all started, and the child membership will come to an end. Moving on to the FSA. So people may know that we're an affiliate of the FSA, and that means that we remain part of the Premier League network. And that brings all Premier League trusts together to discuss different issues. And we've got Thomas here, the network manager, who's joined the call, who will talk a bit more about that. We're also on the women's network through Barry Frenchman, who's on the call, which allows us to feed into that area of the game, and also campaigns at a more national level. So through that affiliation, it's not just Forest, it's also the big issues like fixture rescheduling, VAR, ticket pricing, the fan-led review, impending legislation around independent regulation. All of it gives us a voice in the wider game, which is really crucial. And then finally, moving on to governance. So as part of our affiliation, we're required to have a governance audit on a fairly regular basis, and this was conducted by Nicola, as Andy said. And as part of that, Nicola ensured that our constitution was fully up to date, had all the latest wording, and we're really pleased now that that is now been approved by the Financial Conduct Authority. So that's all logged with them. So those rules are now in place fully. And underpinning those is also a number of different policies. And these were all passed by the board. And these were sort of model policies that the FSA provided to us, and we've adapted for our own use. And these underpin things like board conduct, social media, all of that kind of thing. And what we've done as part of this audit, we were recommended to start a new governance section of the site, and that's just been opened, and all of those policies and the model rules are there, clickable from the main menu, and you can also see meeting minutes as well, as and when they're approved on another area of the site. So it's a lot more, it's a lot better organised now, and you can go through those different policies, and they will govern the trust going forward and how it does its business. So yeah, that's it for the Secretary's report. And I think now we're moving on to a motion. Okay, so we sent round a motion, which should be on the next slide. There we are. So what we need to do to get our rules aligned is to pass this motion this evening. This is to disapply the need for a financial audit. So we felt as a board that is something that after discussion with the FSA that we don't need a full audit for an organisation of this size. So what the alternative is basically that our accounts are inspected by an accountancy each year, which is we feel is far more appropriate for our sort of turnover. So this was sent round before the meeting, and all the wording is there. And what we need to do now is pass that if possible. So if you're happy to pass this motion, then it'd be great if you could raise your hand. So that's on the reactions tab, I believe. And if you could just raise your hand, and then hopefully there will be enough people to pass that particular motion. And if Ellie, you can just let me know if that's the case. So
those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, it's at the bottom. You just move your mouse towards the bottom of the screen, and you'll see it highlighted there in the bottom third from the right. It's raise hand.
Yeah, that looks good. 28 makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so thank you for that. And then yeah, so then that then moves on to the next section, which is the Treasurer's report.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, over to you, Darryl, for the Treasurer's report.
Thank you. So I guess this is the bit everyone's been waiting for. Nobody joined to see Tom, as I was saying to the board earlier, but they didn't agree with me. So I have agreed to stick to 2 minutes, or more or less 2 minutes on this. So I'll go fairly quickly. I am happy to answer any questions if you do have them. It may not be on this meeting, but feel free to contact the trust if there are any questions, and we can figure out getting you a response. So to talk about the actual financial situation in the trust, we're looking pretty good. We've been able to support the trust objectives throughout the year, wholly funding them from the fees that we've received. As Paul mentioned, we've changed our membership model this year. I'll come back to that in just a second when we take a look at the audited, well, the actual accounts that we've presented for this year. Our IT costs have decreased this year, mainly because we did a large amount of IT work and a restructuring of the way we do things at the back end last year, or the year before rather. And so this year's accounts were showing a lot less IT costs. There are still some, As Paul mentioned, we've done some works to our site to make it easier for you guys and to get the data that we need from all of you. We have made accruals. The main reason being for that, so we basically planned to spend money last year. It doesn't show in our accounts, and the reason being is we've had significant problems with our banking partners. Not in terms of anything that would affect the trust, just in terms of being able to get access to our accounts. So that had a lot of knock-on effects, and the accruals are one of them, although they're not significant. And the only other thing that I put down as a note, one of the strategies that we had right from the very beginning, I think, was to build a contingency fund in the event that there was any urgent need for us as a group and the fans to step in, as we saw with the Hasawi era. We don't foresee that in any way, but we do plan for the worst and hope for the best. So if we can have the next slide, please. So this kind of touches on what Paul was saying. We have had some churn in our membership. We have seen it go down. As Paul said, it's mostly the people who haven't renewed their credit card details. A lot of them are working in our old system, PayPal. So we can see that reflected in the membership fees. We may see a further decrease next year, but that's more related to the fact that we've tried to make things better for those people who have kids. So we, like Paul mentioned, the youth membership will now be free. There will be reduced rates for those memberships, but I think overall it's a real positive step, and we'll see people, we'll make it more available to people, I guess. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. There you can see we've got both PayPal fees and Stripe fees. The reason why we can see that they've gone down on the PayPal side and up on the Stripe side, Stripe is our new way of collecting funds. That's the only reason. So we see less in PayPal and more in Stripe as we go forward. And that's also related to that churn. And there you can also see the accountancy fee for this year's accounts, which we didn't have last year, which relates to the motion that was just passed. It's not entirely the case that's directly related, but it has a relation to it. And I think that's all from me. So hopefully that wasn't too much, too heavy.
Thank you very much, Darryl. Now, let me just check it. I think it's back to you, Paul, isn't it, for the board elections? Are you?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So the Secretary's report also has this section in as well. So if you're looking to go into more detail of who's joined the board, go to the Secretary's report and you'll see some full bios of everybody who's joining us. So the Trust, of course, is a democratic organisation, and it means that any member over the age of 16 can stand and be on our board. The current board makeup is obviously myself, Andy and Barry, who 1 year left on our term, and last year Asif was voted onto the board and approved by members. So they're the elected members. We also obviously have Darryl, who you just heard from. He's joined by Vicky, who also presented earlier, and they're co-opted as external directors. And they're also going to be joined going forward by Jonathan Simpson, who's a lifelong Forest fan and has a background in property at senior levels. So great to have Jonathan involved, and his bio is also in the Secretary's report. That meant that we had 6 roles up for election to make up the full 10-person board outlined in the rules. And the election process started in December, and it was overseen by Neil Lemilliere from Exeter Supporters Trust, and he acted as an independent officer to oversee that process and ensure it was all done to the letter of our election policy. It was really great to see the interest levels, and 5 people put themselves forward. and that obviously means that the election isn't contested. But I think it's one of our best intakes since the very start of the trust, and it's really fantastic to get some of these people involved. So just to quickly go through them, there are longer bios available in the report, but we have James, who's a primary care physician and clinical professor at the University of Central Lancashire. He was awarded an OBE for services to medicine. So great to have James on board. Steve, you may recognise, was on the board previously and now rejoins us. And until recently, he ran his own recruitment business. And he also has vast experience of leadership roles in various membership organisations. So welcome back to Steve. Then on to Stuart. So Stuart has a background in software education and football coaching. He's volunteered in various capacities with Colville Town and also worked with the FA on digital education. And as a father of daughters, he's very passionate about both women's football and women's supporters too. So that is Stuart. And we have Christopher. He's got a software development background. He specialises in digital transformation and also runs 2 of his own businesses. And he travels all the way from Anglesey for games and also goes to some away ones as well. So very dedicated and great to have his skills on board. And last but not least, Robert. He specialises in corporate recovery and corporate finance. Has a huge accountancy experience and has worked with football clubs, associations, and also elite athletes as well, and really brings quite a unique skill set to the board. So great to have Robert on board as well. So I'm sure you'll agree these are a great set of candidates who will add a lot to what we do. The next elections are in December, so if you're interested in getting involved, let us know. People can come along to board meetings as a guest if they want to see what we're doing. Andy can have a chat with you about what's involved, because there will be opportunities to join the board next year, and we can also co-opt people as well. So yeah, if you're interested, do get in touch. And obviously we'd like to improve the diversity of the board, and in particular number of women as well. So yeah, it would be great to see a more diverse group going forward. Because the election is uncontested, we do need to, as a membership, approve these 5 candidates. So again, it's another vote. So if you again go to the reactions and click on raise hands if you're happy to approve these 5 candidates. So Ella, if you could just let us know.
Yeah, that's passed.
Brilliant. Okay, that's it from me.
Okay, Paul, thank you very much indeed. And just to reiterate what he said there, if you're watching this tonight and thinking that's something I'd like to be involved with, please do say so. You've seen my face a few times before. I've been doing this a long time now, and we need new blood. So we've got 5-6 people there, but we'll need new blood next year. And so please, it's a serious point. We've done a lot with the Supporters Trust. We've achieved a great deal over time. I think we can achieve a great deal more, but we can't do it without people. So if you want to have a chat, give me a call, have a Zoom call, meet up with you. If you want to hear more about it, I'd be delighted to talk to you about it. So thanks for that. Thanks again. Thank you to all my colleagues on the Trust Board who've presented to you tonight. Can I now hand over to a special guest, Thomas Concannon. Thomas, again, always grateful for your help and support, and the fact that you're prepared to give up your time to talk to our members tonight. So Thomas is going to say a few words, and once Thomas is finished, then we're going to go into a Q&A section, and we still have a fair bit of time left. We don't need to go till 9 o'clock. It's 2 minutes past 8 at the minute. We'll go as long as we like, but if you have some questions, then you will have an opportunity to ask those after Thomas's section. Thomas, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite again. I did this last year as well, so it's becoming a regular occurrence. So I appreciate the invite. So my name is Thomas Concannon. I'm from the Football Supporters Association. I'm the Premier League network manager there. So I work with the supporter organisations like the Trust at Nottingham Forest in the Premier League, work with the clubs, work with the league themselves, and other key stakeholders in the game. And we try and fight for a better environment for football supporters when we're attending games. And you know that covers a multitude of things, from broadcasting to VAR, which is everyone's favourite topic, and you know, things like ticketing. And there's more stuff that the FSA have been covering for quite some time now. This is before I joined the FSA. I've been at the FSA for about 15 months now. I was with them for about 8 years as a volunteer before that. But one of the things that's already been raised tonight is the independent regulator. That's something that the FSA worked on with Tracy Crouch, the MP, on the fan-led review into football governance. And we are hopefully going to see the introduction of an independent regulator very soon. It's already appointed its first COO, so which is a good step. And it's making good strides, hopefully, to being introduced. We do currently believe, and you know, you'll see this now with the current issues that Nottingham Forest are facing with sanctions imposed by the Premier League, or charges against the club, for example. It's a very sort of difficult process, and what we would hope as a supporters organisation is that an independent regulator would have the ability to prevent this happening. We do see certainly Premier League clubs as being in a position where they mark their own homework, they set their own rules, and it's very much a case that we think an independent regulator is needed in football now. We're seeing it right across the pyramid as well. You know, you look at situations at Reading. We had famously Bury recently as well. Other clubs that have faced point deductions. So we do believe that there's a big change needed in football to protect our football clubs. They are community assets, and they are important to the fan bases, and that's what we believe in at the FSA, and that's what we'll continue to fight for. But just on the other stuff, particularly focused on the Premier League network that the Trust are involved in heavily. The broadcasting is a key one. You might notice this since you got promoted, that you're on TV often at daft times and sometimes at late notice, sometimes even with double changes where a game is selected for a certain slot and then it's moved again. There are major complications with broadcasting. We appreciate the money, obviously, that broadcasting comes into the football, you know, the money that comes into the football clubs and the players that it gives us on the pitch, but equally we don't think that should be at the expense of football fans and the financial impact that broadcasting has on football fans, with games being played at daft times at night where supporters can't get home. And so that's certainly an aspect that we're continuing to work on with the Premier League, but also with the broadcasters themselves. Ticketing is another one, which is I saw this was raised by Tom earlier, and how important a topic this is. It feels like we're dealing with every single club now with their away ticketing systems, or even home tickets with season ticket prices, general admission prices, concessionary prices, junior prices. It's all across the board. And what we're doing now, and you can actually see this from the minutes in our last meeting with the Premier League. We have a structured dialogue meeting with the Premier League twice every year. The last one was in December. You can see the minutes on the website. And ticketing was raised, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done here, and we'll be feeding into the Premier League on certain issues across the division where there might be problems with ticketing. So this is where we'll be working with the likes of the Trust to find out what the problems are at Forest, and that'll be submitted to the Premier League as well. And we'll hopefully find some nice ground where we feel comfortable with where ticketing is. We're seeing constant rises in that area as well. You know, you've seen at Fulham this season, there's the introduction of a £3,000 general admission season ticket. That's non-hospitality. And it's things like that are starting to creep in the Premier League, and that's where we have major concerns. Other stuff, I've just made some notes as well. VAR, that's everyone loves VAR. I'm sure we all agree on this call. We've all been impacted by it, and it's, you know, it is a very controversial topic. We're continuing to carry out research at the FSA as to, you know, what football fans feel about VAR. But what we have done in that time is build a relationship with the PGMOL, where we now have regular dialogue with them, not just at the Premier League, but through Championship, League One, League Two, and the women's game, which is what PGMOL cover. So we've built up a dialogue with them now, so we can talk about the experience of VAR to fans that are inside stadiums. We think that's really important. We certainly feel that fans within stadiums are sometimes the last to know about what's going on the football pitch, because the communication within stadiums isn't great. The footage we get shown on teams that have big screens isn't great. And we're often left in the dark until we leave a stadium about what's actually happened. And we think that's a big problem. Fans are paying a lot of money to be there, and don't believe that VAR should be impacting on the game as much as what it is. But equally, the relationship with the PGM will extend beyond VAR. It's not just VAR focused, although that will cover off a lot of the Premier League work. But there's a lot of stuff around the standard of refereeing, but equally going all the way down to grassroots. And you know, we all hear about abuse that referees get on football pitches on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning, and that's all stuff that we would, I think we would all agree that we would like to see change. So having that positive relationship with the PGMOL, we think, is really important. And just in terms of the trust, this is where the trusts come in and are able to feed into those conversations that we eventually have with the key stakeholders in the game, and that's what we want to continue to do. There's always opportunities for the reps from the Forest Trust to attend these meetings as well. They are high in demand, so often it's sometimes it's not possible, but you know, there are those opportunities there. But one thing I will say as well, just quickly on the fan advisory board, I know they said that the first meeting's tomorrow. Obviously, the Forest Trust have a seat on that. One thing I will say in terms of the importance, it was raised before about the role of the trust alongside a fan advisory board. Well, a trust is still absolutely vital to the relationship that a football club has with its supporters. Because there are limited seats on this fan advisory board, which is done for a reason, so that the conversations can be flowing and be productive. But the best thing about the trust is that they're going into that meeting representing other people, and they're going there to represent the views of you, and that's how you get your voice heard on a fan advisory board. And we think that's really, really important, that you're not an individual person that's going onto a fan advisory board that maybe hasn't even been elected by the fan base. It's just been selected by the club. So at least the Forest Trust are democratic. You know, they've been elected by the fan base, and they're going to represent your views. And we think that that's really, really important. So we're looking forward to seeing how the fan advisory board system across the Premier League, you know, gets on. We'll find out. We'll know a bit more towards the end of the season, when each club has to submit a report about how the fan engagement's gone for that year. But yeah, we're looking forward to seeing the progress, and we'll always be there to support the Forest Trust and all the other members of the Premier League network. So that's all from me. I hope I haven't waffled too much, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen and hear about the work of the FSA. And yeah, just thank you.
Thomas, thanks very much indeed. That was fluent and informative as always from you. Thank you. Greatly appreciated. So we've got the Q&A session now, and I'm gonna kick off. I've got a question for you, Thomas, if that's all right. So the thing that most people attending tonight wanted to know about, when probably the reason why we've had such a high attendance, was hearing from our chairman about the apparent breach. Now, obviously, I wouldn't expect you to talk about Forest in particular here, but in general terms, there's been quite a lot in the media, and it's something I think, certainly speaking for myself, it's not necessarily the trust view, because we've got to consult with the membership and so on. But speaking for myself, I wonder whether the current PSR rules are actually fit for purpose, in that they can certainly be seem to prevent clubs moving up into the Premier League, as we've had to do, spending some money in order to try to establish yourself there. Is that something that, not on behalf of Forest, Thomas, but just generally speaking, is that something that the FSA has a position on, it has an interest in? Is that a work stream for you guys? Because we'd certainly be very interested in contributing, having consulted with our members, but contributing to a debate, to a consideration about that? Or is it the case that we're stuck with the likes of Manchester City and the guys who spent their money in the past when the rules weren't there being established? They can now spend loads because they've got a revenue of £710 million, and people like us we never catch up. And they weren't a bigger club than us back in the day. Does the FSA have a position on that?
Yeah, so in terms of financial regulation and we have an agreement around that, and we believe that it should be in place. We don't believe football clubs should be able to go and spend ridiculous amounts of money that effectively end up leading them to being bust, or going bust. We think there's a really important place for financial regulation. I think what this has done is, the Everton situation, Man City, and now Forest, it's brought it to light a lot more, certainly in the Premier League, as to whether, do we need to sort of rethink our position? And it'll be constantly under review with regards to the FSA. I think that because it's all fresh and it's all sort of new, and that this has only been happening to clubs further down the pyramid with unruly owners that have severely impacted them financially, and that's had a huge impact on the communities. The good thing is about the clubs involved now, we hope would obviously still be in a good financial position, even on the back if there were points deductions or anything else. But equally, you raise a good point around, is it outdated? Are the current regulations in the Premier League outdated? Is going over 105 million, is that too small a number now? I think these are all the conversations that we need to have, and I think because it's all fresh in the mind, we don't have an answer for that right now, but it's certainly under review. But it's certainly things that we would want to hear from the Forest Trust on, because it's happening to your club. We want your experiences just the same way that we did with Everton. At the last structured dialogue meeting that we had with the Premier League, we had an Everton representative there who was able to make those representations on behalf of the fan base. And are the fans being punished for the actions of owners that they were actually protesting against at the time, who might not be there for very long? And that's, these are, and raising the Man City issue as well, which is obviously way more complicated because of the amount of charges, but equally the lack of an agreement from Man City as to the charges they may or may not have broken. So it's I think the two situations are very different, but it's only right that football fans ask that question as to why Forest and Everton can be dealt with much quicker than what Man City can.
If only we'd transgressed 115 times, we'd be fine. We wouldn't have to worry about this season. All right, thank you. Okay, so with regard then to submitting some questions, the way in which you do that, slide your mouse down towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see Q&A there, and if you could type into the chat that raises any questions that you have, then we'll try to field them. There's one, Barry, I think you're saying you're going to answer this one live. So the question is, how many people are in the meeting and are able to vote? Did you want to talk about that, Barry? Or
no, I just pressed the wrong button, but it is 52.
Okay, that's fine.
It was 52.
Yeah, I can tell you there was a bit over. I think I saw 53, something like that, and everybody's able to vote apart from the people who aren't members of the trust. Yeah, so I hope
while I'm on, Andy, can I just make one comment rather than a question, just to clarify something?
Please.
And that's that I think we should just take a little more time to clarify what Vicky's doing with female supporters of the men's team, rather than as opposed to the work we're doing with the women's team and women's supporters of the women's team, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, sure. Vicky, do you want to comment on that? It's a very important point, that it's representing the female voice, isn't it, as opposed to the women's Nottingham Forest team.
Yeah, and I suppose, Barry, you can also talk about what you're doing, because it is two separate projects. So what I'm looking at is the diversity of the members, so the female side of the fans for the men's team for Nottingham Forest. So we have been meeting up, have been getting feedback from them about the attendance of game, any issues, any suggestions, any improvements. So we have been regularly meeting up before the games to get feedback specifically for the male team and probably needs to look at words of how we do this. But Barry, yours is different, so you explain yours.
Yeah, the Trust are looking to support the women's team and grow the crowd, but also to encourage a fan group of supporters for the women's team, as well as sponsoring various activities at the ground, either before kickoff or at half time. And those of you who were there will have heard me speak to Will at the beginning of this meeting, asking about a meeting that we've been trying to arrange, but has been slightly problematic, as I think everybody in the Trust knows. But hopefully we can overcome that, and things will be taken forward.
Okay, thanks, Barry. So the next question, I think this is going to be back to you again, Thomas. Stuart Burley is saying, is there, or could there be perhaps an acknowledgement by the Premier League that I think you're meaning here, Stuart, if I'm reading this properly, that perhaps a well-run, sustainable and compliant club could be financially rewarded. I don't know whether that could be something where we saying that wherever you are in the table, maybe you get a bit more because you're properly sustained. I know that's not, I mean, it'd be a Premier League decision, Thomas. I know that's not something sadly you could actually influence directly, but maybe influence. Does the FSA any thoughts about that? Would that be a model that could be looked at?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's been a point that was raised by Everton fans, that are they being punished for wanting to expand their club and build a new stadium and enhance the community that it's built for, effectively. And so it is an interesting debate. I think, as I said before, we've always supported financial regulation in football just to make sure that there aren't any unruly owners that impact our football clubs. And but it's an interesting suggestion, and I think I'd say we're probably a long way off it at this stage, with the way that football's going. And like I say, with the introduction of an independent regulator, will certainly have an impact. So yeah, it's one to watch on that front.
Okay. Again, another one for you. Steve Bennett says, how many trusts are there? And do the trusts meet, and is there a sharing of best practice? Now, obviously through your network, you alluded already to trust meeting together, you're hearing what other people are saying and so on, but over 200, I think. Is that right? Did you know?
Yeah, for Premier League Network, we're at I think there's over 120 fan organizations, or that could be affiliates or associated, not necessarily trusts.
Okay.
We have one trust per club.
Yeah.
So Nottingham Forest, the Supporters Trust is the one for Nottingham Forest. So we have 20 of those in the Premier League in terms of Supporters Trust, but we have about 120 fan organizations, and that can vary from supporters clubs, trusts, atmosphere groups, diversity groups. There's a multitude of things that we cover across the Premier League network. But there's a lot of feeding, but we do get the most activity from our trusts.
Perfect. Nick, I think you've got your hand raised. You're going to say something. Thank you.
Hi, yeah. Well, do you know what? You joined me just in time with that question, because I've got my big geeky spreadsheet out of all our groups that are registered as community benefit societies. So if that was the nature of the question, I want to know how many are supporters trusts. Across English and Welsh football, we have 151 supporters trusts as community benefit societies. Obviously, there are many more in Scotland, and there's quite a lot of CBSs in other sports. A bit of a hangover from our work that we did when we were Supporters Direct before the merger. I worked in other sports, and I think, I came and helped set up Forest Trust some years ago, and that big open meeting. And so aside from the networks as well, we have a lot of other ways that our trusts can share best practice through our training. We hold training monthly for our directors, but other members of trust can come be part of that, but also role-specific kind of sharing of best practice. So we've got a secretaries network that we've launched, so our secretaries can engage with other secretaries and learn and share how to put in place those policies, those rules, how to enact them, and kind of do get the best out of the board and their societies. So there's an awful lot of interaction and peer-to-peer learning from all of our trusts at all different levels of the game. You know, Thomas does a great job with all the Premier League network, and obviously you can share what affects you as Premier League fans, but there's also opportunities for you to share your experience and learn from our entire network. That's all levels of the game, right through to the national game, non-league.
Thank you very much. I think from our side, Paul might be able to add something on this, because Paul is closely involved with the liaison with the FSA. Paul, do you have anything to say about best practice?
Yeah, just an example of that. So during COVID, we did a lot of work on positive mental health. So we worked with a Tricky to Talk program that the community trusted. We also offered mental health first aid training to members as well. But then I was invited on an FSA webinar to discuss mental health with 3 or 4 other trusts who'd also done stuff, and then that was then circulated around the EFL network at the time. So yeah, if we do good stuff, there is that opportunity to share it, and then at the same time we can also learn from others who've done different sorts of projects.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Another one for you, I think, FSA guys. Robert Matazievich says VAR has created as many problems as it sought to solve. I think that all Forest fans would say that's the case this year. Willie Bolly in particular suffered from a disgraceful decision, but whatever, we don't need to go into that, do we? But he says the idea of a football regulator seems logical, but to whom will or could the football regulator be answerable? Again, I know not your direct responsibility, but you have any comments on that? Or any thoughts or any wishes? Who could it be?
Well, you're right in terms of it not being my direct responsibility.
No,
without
sadly.
sort of over talking my understanding of the regulator, and it is quite above my pay grade, but it's because it is still in its early phases. But what we do see is the fact that independence will bring over football clubs, and it not being leagues just left to regulate themselves, like we saw with the Super League, for example, and clubs just thinking they can go and do what they want. Having an independent regulator there would be really important in terms of it'll operate a licensing system where clubs will owners will have to go through they'll have to get a license, they have to go through the licensing system to own football clubs as well. And yeah, we just think the independent regulator will be hugely beneficial for football, and hopefully we'll see the positive impact in more clubs staying afloat for years to come.
Right. Okay. Next question. Elliot Stanley, the previous chair of the Supporters Trust. Elliot, hello. How are you, mate? Good to see you attending tonight. Thank you. So Elliot says, and he and I have had a chat about this, and I think a lot of people will agree with this. I'm going to read it out verbatim. Lots of discussion about allocation of away tickets, but does the FSA have a position on huge stadia giving tiny percentage allocations to away fans? The £30 limit on away tickets is lapped up by the likes of United and Liverpool because it's hugely preferable to giving away 10% of their stadium, which they can do, as they have to, of course, for FA Cup games. And they can then sell that excess to tourists willing to pay hundreds of pounds and more for tickets. So any comment on that? You know, a higher allocation from these big stadia.
Do you know what? This is actually something that we've discussed recently, because the rule of 10% or 3,000, so 3,000 tickets, or if your capacity is under 30,000, then you get 10%. So that was an old rule, and football stadia have got a lot bigger in that time. Where we, at the time Tottenham had a 30,000 seater stadium, now 60-odd thousand. And similar with, you've got the likes of Everton expanding, West Ham expanded. So a lot of clubs have expanded their stadiums, yet the allocations haven't changed. I think it is certainly something we need to look at. We're obviously very proud of the £30 away cap. We think that's absolutely vital, and that needs to continue. We'd love to see that extend down the pyramid as well, because it's currently not in the EFL, and the Championship clubs are lapping up the fact that it's not there, and taking advantage of supporters on that front. So the £30 cap we think is really important, and hopefully with the new broadcasting deal that they've just signed, which is well into the billions again, we'll see the continuation of that. But I think it is certainly an interesting point around the allocations. Old Trafford, who knows what that might extend to, and you still only get 3,000 tickets out of, you know, a 75,000 capacity, what it currently is at the moment. You know, should that be adjusted now that the stadiums are getting bigger? So no, thanks for raising that, because that is something that we have talked about internally. So it's good to know that that's on the thoughts of other people's minds as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I'm not quite sure who to direct this to. I think I know what the answer is likely to be, but Chris Haynes, thanks for your question, Chris. Could clubs be made to have a compulsory ballot system for away tickets, giving every season ticket holder at least a chance to go to an away match? I think that caused some ripples with a few people, Chris, but anybody got comments about that?
I mean, again, I suppose I can jump in, and again, it looks at all the ticket. We are looking at all the ticketing systems right across the league at the moment to see what works best. The problem is you've got so many other clubs that are just totally different. You know, some clubs just don't travel well at all. Forest are lucky that they do. Other clubs obviously do. The ballot system is quite popular in terms of it being a small number of tickets that go into a ballot that allow fans a chance to get on the ladder and build any loyalty points, or however clubs run their systems. So it's not unusual to have a ballot system, and I'd be surprised if more clubs don't take it up in the future. That's not to say Forest will. I'll be honest and say I don't actually know how Forest operate their away ticketing system at the moment, but it's you know, I understand how emotive a topic it is. I'm a Newcastle United fan myself, and I was going to ask if Chris Wood could come back as well, because he scored a cracking hat-trick against us a few weeks ago, and we need a striker.
I think about you that night.
Thank you. So you know, having that sort of understanding around that is yeah, I think that's key. And you know, whether ballots need to come in or not, it can vary. It's such an emotive topic as it is at Newcastle right now, with away tickets and the high demand, and it was interesting what was raised with Tom before around how many tickets are going elsewhere to corporate and sponsors, and is that percentage far too high, and is it impacting on the away allocation, and does that then go back to the previous point around you know, the size of the allocations?
Yeah, indeed. So just briefly on that, we've, you know, for anybody on the call who isn't an away ticket member, we do at the Trust, we try to represent the interests of everybody, not just the people who are shouting the loudest. And certainly there's a lot of people who want to go to away matches, but then again, there's a lot of people who have been loyal over many years, and they want their right to carry on. And so we try to achieve a sort of a balance. And we have recommended to the club they have a ballot for a small number of tickets. At the moment, Thomas, there isn't any. There's no ballot at all. You have to be an away member, and there's 2 tiers of away membership. In the first tier, you'll get a ticket for every game, assuming they want it. And the second tier, you get a decent chance, you know, at least 50-50 overall in the season is what the club claim. And as one of those in that second tier, I can say I've been successful in at least that. Tried to get tickets for most away matches. So anyway, so that's that one. Okay. Next question. Jonathan has a question directly to Vicky. Vicky, how does the Trust membership mix compare to the current season ticket holder mix? Do you know the answer to that?
No, and I think I did answer in the chat that's one of the things we.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
We want to talk to the club about.
Yeah.
In terms of. Yeah, and it's okay. So fine, I can still answer it. So if we can look at their data, but also look at you know, the equality, the diversity data as well. You know, in terms of that. So it's one of the things we put in to look at going forward to see how that aligns with our own members, and kind of inform the strategy going forward.
Thank you. Steve Bennett says, thanks for the answers. Would be value in getting the Trust together annually to collaborate and share ideas and plans. I suppose that'd be some sort of big cohort of all Trust, those people who wanted to go forward.
So we do have our annual AGM, which can be attended by all of the support organisations, which is a good opportunity to attend and meet other people in person, where we run workshops, but equally through the networks that we have set up. We do have 4 meetings a year with the supporters trust that are in the Premier League. So we do liaise regularly. We have an email loop as well, where trusts can liaise with other trusts and continue that dialogue across the year. we do like to keep in regular contact with everyone, certainly on the burning issues that we all face in the league.
Okay. There's a question from Tom Newton. Hello, Tom. How are you? Tom, for those people who don't know, Tom was the originator of the Supporters Trust. He and colleague Richard, they were the guys who actually set it up in the first place. And so he's been involved, of course, in the past. And he says that having gone to meetings at Supporters Direct some time ago, one of the things that was being talked about regularly there was the point you did, or you have sort of touched on this, Thomas, but I'll just ask it again in case there's anything more you wanted to say about the scheduling of TV matches and the way fans, and getting ripped off by train companies and so on. Clearly, I think you said earlier that these high on your agenda. He's saying, has anything improved over the years? And what do you think? I'm going to just add where I think he's going with this is, what's the direction of travel? Or what do you think?
Yeah, it's a really, really difficult position. This we've often fought this for years, as you rightly know. The difficulty we have is that broadcasters pay billions and billions of pounds, and believe that, well, unless supporters are able to stump up that sort of money, then they'll continue to put games at ridiculous times, and having that relationship with train companies has also been very, very difficult. There was conversations years ago about how they could get football fans off the trains, never mind on them, and giving them discount for them. The rail flexibility tickets, sort of, in case games are moved and all this sort of stuff. It's all stuff that continues to be raised. There never seems to be any sort of willingness from those involved, i.e. broadcasters, the league, the clubs. I think, the clubs in particular probably get an easy ride on broadcasting, but ultimately it's the clubs that give the power to the league to enable broadcasters to do whatever they want. So, I would encourage the trust to, and for supporters in general, to keep the pressure on all angles, because it's we're getting ripped off at the moment. Being a football fan and attending every game is really, really expensive. It's becoming unaffordable for a hell of a lot of people. So we need to make sure that there's pressure on all angles and we know the club will be happy with the money that they're getting in. Of course they will. But there needs to be some sort of leeway to the fans that they constantly bang on about being the lifeblood of the game. We constantly hear that message. It was a key message throughout COVID, wasn't it? We all heard it.
Yeah.
We just feel like we get shafted a lot on all of these issues. So it's another good point raised. It's something we'll continue to bang that drum. I'll certainly from my point of view, I'll never be stopping that.
I think an interesting point there about the importance of fans. The Premier League is the most widely watched league anywhere in the world, and there's a reason for that. It's because of the atmosphere. Have you watched much of the Saudi League? I haven't. I'm going to. Of course, I'm not. You're watching a bunch of, maybe it might be very talented players kicking a ball about in front of. I could look out my window here. There's probably more people walking past my house tonight in total watching Al Ittihad and the rest of them. It ain't ever going to be proper engaged football because the fans aren't there. The reason why our game in England, in Britain, is so well loved is because of that passionate. And if people can't go anymore, you're going to get tourists, you get no atmosphere. It ultimately might take years, but you can imagine people becoming disenfranchised with it. So thanks for that. Right, Elaine Fox. Elaine, you've raised something here. It's controversial. It's a really important one, though. I'm going to read it out. I'll start to answer it to see if anybody else wants to come in. So Elaine's saying, we've rightly made strides in football becoming more inclusive and punishing fans for offensive behaviour. And that's offensive behaviour, because racism and whatever. But she makes the point here, is there anything the trust or the club could do to influence culture change? For example, to deter the singing of a certain song which is associated with us, and you're all where I'm going with this is "Oh, Nottingham's Full of Fun," that song. Elaine makes the point, she says, having brought my young nieces to matches, they were very uncomfortable when they heard it. And Elaine, I'm not surprised. And I'll be quite straight and honest with you, I'm embarrassed every time I hear that song. I go to the games with my wife, and she thinks it's infantile and silly. But she's my age, obviously. She's a bit older, but young people, youngsters can feel disenfranchised from a sport which should be welcoming everybody. I don't know if you know, Elaine, some years ago we did one of the previous Trust Board member who some of you will know, she wrote to our member base about this particular issue. And somebody in the member base leaked it, and it went on social media, got the most appalling abuse from anonymous trolls, obviously, online, and not to the degree of physical threats, but really, really ugly stuff. It was shocking. And we got massive amount of criticism for it. It's an extremely difficult one. And you know what? I think it's tricky. We've tried it once before and it didn't go well. I hope that sort of covers it a bit. Does anybody else have anything to say about that particular issue?
Yeah, can I mention something? Yeah, I think just to say we do agree with you and did try to do something about it. But I think over the years I've learned that it is very, very difficult to police fans and stop people from what they perceive of having a good time. So it is a difficult one for trusts and obviously clubs as well aren't keen to go there. But you know, there are related issues like tragedy chanting, that kind of thing, things about Munich and Hillsborough and all of that kind of thing. And I know that the FSA have done some activity on trying to educate fans about why it's insulting and unacceptable, and maybe some more work could be done on sexism and that sort of thing as well, because you know, obviously you would be I'm uncomfortable when I hear it, and I don't know how a young female on their own would feel when that's being sung.
The problem with it, Elaine, is that, you know, you get accused of being woke and being negative like that. And I suppose if I was going to try to look at it from the other point of view, which I do try to do, there's going to be a lot of people as well saying, oh, come on, you know, I don't mean anything by it. I'm not actually sexist. You know, my girlfriend or my sister sings along with that. And we did get that. You know, some women did say that they joined in. I really don't like it myself. I just think it's embarrassing that our club, more than anybody else, is you know, the one to sing that. Lord knows why. But Elaine, if you want to talk about it in more detail, send me a message to comms@nfsttrust.org. Happily meet with you, have a chat with you, see what we can do. But as we've said, it's tricky. It really is. I'm sorry, it's not a perfect answer, but we've, as I say, we've tried in the past. So at the moment, we've just got one more question, and it's going to be a quick answer. Steve Battlemucher says, sorry, you've missed the first 30 minutes. Was this session with Tom recorded or were notes taken? Steve, sorry you didn't make it at the beginning. We have agreed with Forest that the whole session's been recorded, as much as anything, because if anybody raised anything about what Tom Cartledge said and put it on social media, so on, then we've got you know, evidence of what he actually said. But it won't be released. We agreed with the club that it wouldn't be. And as much as anything, you know, because this was meant to be a session just for members of the Supporters Trust, not for anybody else, just for you, for members. You know, conscious some of the stuff we do, like the Q&A, which the club put out on their own YouTube channel, goes more widely than just our membership. So it was just that. Notes weren't taken, but Steve, if you want to give me a call or send me a message, then I can talk you through what he talked about. It was positive. It's a shame he missed it. It was a good meeting. You know, he was open with his answers. But I'm happy to have a chat with you when you've got some time and tell you what he said. Okay, so at the moment, that's it. No more questions. So unless somebody's going to type really quickly and answer another question, then just goes to me to say thank you very much indeed. Thank you for our special guests, Nick Cave and Thomas Concannon. Really, really valuable. Thank you so much for giving up your evenings. Deeply appreciated. But most of all, thank you to all of our members. I hope you think that with you know, that this evening's been worthwhile. If you want to criticize, please do. Right? We don't want just praise. Praise is great. I do. If you want to praise as well, that's cool. But if you think we could be doing things better, please let us know. Tell us what we could be doing better. Constructive criticism is great. We're very open to it. We're trying to run a good organization for your benefit and the benefit of the rest of our members. And if you can think of any ways that we can do it better, then please let us know. So that's it. I'm just going to say you Reds, and let's hope we beat Bristol Friday and stuff Arsenal on Tuesday next week. Thank you very much indeed, and good night.